Okay, so as winter gets closer, there's this real chill in the air across Europe. And I don't just mean the temperature. We're talking about the energy crisis, especially hitting hard in places like Germany and France.
Absolutely. It's a major concern.
And today, we're going to do a deep dive into this, specifically how Russia has really strategically used its energy, particularly gas, almost like a weapon against Europe, in response to the sanctions.
It's a classic geopolitical play, leveraging resources.
Right. And our mission here is to sort of unravel the layers of this crisis.
Mhm.
And we're going to focus quite a bit on France because there's this really puzzling question.
The French situation is, well, unexpected for many.
Exactly. Why is France a country that gets, what, over 70% of its power from nuclear energy? Why are they suffering? Maybe even more than Germany, which we know is super dependent on Russian gas.
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? But the factors are complex.
It really does. We're drawing on some fascinating analysis you shared about how this whole thing played out. So let's get into it.
Okay. So the starting point, really, is the shift after the war in Ukraine began. The U.S. and Europe hit Russia with sanctions.
Standard response, economically speaking.
Pretty standard, yes, but Russia's counter, it was fast and it hit where it hurt. Energy supplies, they effectively weaponized it.
So beyond just, turning down the taps, what were the first moves they made? How did they start using energy as leverage?
Well, one of the big early moves was demanding payment for gas in Russian rubles.
Ah, I remember that. That was aimed at propping up their currency, wasn't it?
Precisely. And it worked, to an extent. The ruble actually became surprisingly resilient for a while there. Meanwhile, Europe had its own strategy forming.
Right. They had to react. What was the plan?
Well, the initial EU plan was pretty straightforward. First, fill up the gas storage facilities. The target was 90% full by November.
Ambitious, given the circumstances.
Very. And second, cut gas consumption across the board by 15% for the winter. That's about 45 billion cubic meters, a huge amount.
Okay, so Europe's trying to shore up its defenses, conserve energy, but then Russia makes another move.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting and directly impacts supply. Russia drastically cut the gas flow through Nord Stream 1.
The main pipeline.
The main one, yeah. They cut it by a massive 80%.
80%. And the official reason was?
They framed it as a turbine issue, technical problems, maintenance,
But not everyone bought that. I
Huh.
remember German Chancellor Olaf Scholz.
Mm.
He didn't mince words, did he?
No, he called it a deliberate ploy, basically accusing Russia of manufacturing a technical excuse to weaponize energy.
And looking at the analysis, how clear is that picture? Was it technical or strategic?
I mean, looking at the timing, the pattern of disruptions, the consensus really leans towards strategic. It fits the pattern of weaponization.
And the significance of hitting Nord Stream 1 specifically.
It's huge. Like I said, it's Europe's primary gas import route from Russia. So cutting that flow has a massive knock-on effect. These actions, plus others, just drastically slashed the total Russian gas getting to Europe. It was a deliberate squeeze.
Okay, so that sets the stage for the gas crisis.
Yeah.
But again, this brings us back to France. You'd think, with all that nuclear power.
Right. Over 70% nuclear electricity generation, around 56 operational reactors, plans for 14 more by 2035. On paper,
They should be almost immune to Russia's gas games, relatively speaking. Super resilient.
they should be. But this is where we hit that nuclear paradox in France. Their foundation looks strong, but they're facing these really unexpected challenges.
It kind of shows the risk of relying too heavily on one type of complex infrastructure, maybe.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't maintain investment.
That's a huge part of it. It highlights this long-term vulnerability. You need sustained investment over decades, and that's hard, especially when public opinion or political winds shift against something like nuclear.
Right. So these French plants, many are quite old, aren't they?
Mm.
Built in the 70s and 80s. What problems were brewing even before this immediate crisis?
Significant ones. You had decades of strong anti-nuclear campaigns.
Which had a real impact.
Oh, absolutely. It led to a serious lack of new investment, a lack of development in the sector. It wasn't just talk. It affected policy, funding, political will, everything you need to keep a complex nuclear infrastructure modern and safe.
So aging plants without enough upgrades.
Exactly. A lot of them are nearing the end of their designed operational lifespan. And now, currently, that underlying issue is being massively compounded.
How so? What's happening right now with the reactors?
Well, it's kind of a perfect storm of maintenance and technical issues. You've got 7 plants undergoing these really extensive 10-year safety inspections. Big jobs.
Okay, 7 offline for major checks.
Then another 13 reactors are offline just for routine maintenance, regular stuff, but it takes them offline.
Wow, okay, so that's 20 reactors already accounted for. That's a huge chunk of their fleet.
It's a massive shortfall. And it doesn't stop there. There are concerns about potential crack risks in some reactors.
Crack risks. That sounds serious.
It is. It requires detailed inspections that could take months, maybe even years in some cases.
Okay, so inspections, maintenance, potential cracks.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Yep. 3 more reactors are offline for refueling, which is standard, necessary. And another 5 are offline for, various other technical reasons.
Good grief. That's an astonishing number offline simultaneously.
It is. And then, just to make things even worse, climate change enters the picture.
How does climate change affect nuclear power?
Water. Nuclear plants need absolutely vast amounts of water for cooling.
Right, usually from rivers.
Exactly. But we've seen these severe heat waves and droughts across Europe leading to historically low river levels in France.
So not enough water, or the water's too warm.
Both can be issues. If the river levels are too low or the water temperature gets too high, you simply can't draw enough cooling water, or the discharge water would be too hot for the river's ecosystem. They have to reduce power output, or sometimes
Shut down completely.
shut down completely. To avoid any risk of overheating, the kind of situation that could lead towards a potential catastrophe like Fukushima, safety protocols demand it.
So you add it all up. The aging plants, the lack of investment due to past campaigns, the current wave of maintenance, safety checks, technical faults, and the impact of climate change.
And you get the staggering reality. More than half of France's entire nuclear reactor fleet is currently offline.
More than half. Suddenly, that 70% nuclear reliance doesn't look quite so secure, does it?
Not when half the generators are out of action. It completely flips the script.
So France is facing this massive power shortfall. What are they doing? Where are they turning?
Well, it's a desperate scramble, really. They're falling back on oil. They're trying to get more liquefied natural gas, LNG, from other countries.
Which is expensive and in high demand globally.
Extremely. They're even considering firing up coal plants again, which goes against all their climate goals, of course.
A step backwards environmentally.
Definitely. And they're pushing hard on renewables, solar, wind. But those take time to build out. They aren't an instant fix for this winter.
So, in the immediate term,
Yeah.
where does the power actually come from if their own plants are offline?
And this is the great irony. They're having to buy electricity from their neighbors.
Neighbors
Like the UK, Germany, Spain, Belgium.
but wait, aren't many of those neighbors also struggling with energy supplies, partly because they rely on the very Russian gas that's being squeezed?
Exactly. That's the supreme irony. France, the nuclear powerhouse, is importing power generated in other countries, quite possibly using the Russian gas that France itself doesn't directly depend on as much.
That's quite a situation. And what happens if those neighbors start thinking, hang on, we need this power for ourselves?
Well, you're starting to see hints of that. This help yourself first mentality is emerging. Some gas producers are prioritizing domestic needs. It really puts the whole idea of European energy solidarity under immense stress.
It's a real test of that unity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when people are facing hardship at home.
A massive test. It tests political unity right down to the wire.
And the economic impact in France itself. We're hearing about prices. How bad is it?
It's brutal. Okay, so French gas prices, they've soared by about 129%, which is huge.
Painful, but maybe understandable given the gas market.
But electricity, this is where it gets truly mind-boggling. Electricity prices in France for next year delivery surged, get this, by 1,000%.
1,000%. Seriously.
Seriously, reaching 550 euros per megawatt hour.
What were they before? Like, typically?
Typically, around 50, maybe 60 euros per megawatt hour.
So from 50 or 60 euros to 550.
Exactly. And just for comparison, Germany, which is, as we said, heavily reliant on Russian gas and facing its own crisis, their price is around 350 euros. Still incredibly high, but significantly less than France.
So France's electricity, despite the nuclear base, is now more expensive than Germany's. That's the paradox in hard numbers.
That's the paradox hitting people's wallets. Hard.
When you talk about a 1,000% increase, what does that actually mean for, say, an ordinary French family or a small bakery trying to operate?
It means potentially devastating choices this winter. It translates into crippling bills, for a start.
So beyond the bills, what are the potential consequences for the country?
Well, the government is bracing for the real possibility of energy rationing, planned power outages, rolling blackouts in some regions.
Blackouts in France, that could have a huge impact, couldn't it? Thinking about tourism, for instance.
Absolutely. France's vital tourism industry could be severely hit. One writer grimly described the potential for Paris, the city of lights, to become the city of darkness.
That's a stark image. And industries, factories.
Major problems there, too. Many French factories rely heavily on electricity and gas. At these kinds of prices, their operations might just be completely unsustainable.
Meaning closures.
Layoffs.
Yes, potentially widespread closures and significant layoffs,
Mm.
which then feeds into the broader economic picture.
Which wasn't looking great anyway.
No. You've already got relatively high unemployment in France, and now add soaring inflation, currently around 6.5% on top of this energy shock. It's a very, very difficult economic situation brewing.
Okay, so just to quickly recap, we've seen this incredibly complex mix. Geopolitics with Russia weaponizing gas. France's own issues with its aging nuclear fleet, lack of investment, maintenance backlogs, and then climate change exacerbating it all. It's pushed France, this country we thought of as an energy giant, into a really unprecedented crisis.
It really is unprecedented, a confluence of factors hitting all at once.
And it leaves us with some pretty heavy questions, doesn't it? I mean, firstly, how long can ordinary French citizens actually endure this kind of pressure, these prices, the potential blackouts? That's the immediate human question. The social impact could be immense.
And then, zooming out a bit, what does this mean for European unity? Will countries stick together in supporting Ukraine against Russia when the domestic cost, the hardship brought on by this energy crisis, becomes so incredibly high?
That's the million-dollar question, or perhaps a multi-billion-euro question. It's a fundamental challenge that's echoing right across the continent right now. How much pain can we endure for the sake of that solidarity?
A tough question with no easy answers. Definitely something for all of us, especially in Europe, to think about as winter approaches.